Good times and bum times, I've seen them all, and my dear, I'm still here. Plush velvet sometimes just pretzels and beer, but I'm here.
Hey, thanks for listening. David Yakir here, and today we finally have the answer to the age-old question, is coffee good for you? And later, we have Stephanie Raffelock, host of the Coffee Table Wisdom podcast, on the positive potential of aging. So that's what we'll yak about today.
And I'm here, danced in my scanties, $3 a night was the pay, but I'm here, I've stood on...
What's up, everybody? I'm David Yakir for Yak About Today. You know, when I'm out and about, or at a dinner or a gathering, I'm always fascinated by your opinions, thoughts, and questions. And before I sit down in front of this mic, I look for answers to your questions, share your thoughts, and bring you the latest information from the best people I can find. So, if all this is of interest to you, then this is the place you want to be. So get up, put your headphones on, go for a run, and listen to what we yak about today. You know, I've been thinking about some of the questions that you've been sending in, and one that pops up in my electronic mail pouch whenever I have a nutritional expert on the air is coffee good for me? Well, my friends, the answer is apparently yes. So it seems that in moderation, coffee seems to be good for most people. That's 3 to 5 cups or up to 400 milligrams of caffeine. And in fact, Erica Luffield, I think I pronounced that right, is a research fellow at the National Cancer Institute who has studied the beverage. She says that the evidence is pretty consistent that coffee is associated with a lower risk of mortality. So for years, coffee was believed to be a possible carcinogen, but the 2015 Dietary Guidelines study changed that perception. For the first time, moderate coffee drinking was included as part of a healthy diet. When researchers controlled for lifestyle factors like how heavy coffee drinkers also smoked, the data tipped in coffee's favor. In addition, experts say some of the strongest protective effects may be with type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, and liver conditions such as cirrhosis, liver cancer, and chronic liver disease. For example, having about 5 cups of coffee a day instead of none is correlated with a 30% decrease. So, for more on these studies, let me point you all to the February 3rd, 2020 article in the New York Times entitled, Is Coffee Good for You? By Dawn McKean. And we'll be right back with Stephanie Raffelock.
Don't talk back.
And we are back. And as promised, I've got Stephanie Raffelock. She is an advocate for positive potential of aging, which is a lot like we're trying to do here. She proves that women, hopefully men too, aren't finished living their best lives at 50, 60, and beyond, but instead hold to the promise to become the wise elders of our culture. Thanks so much for coming on. I finally have somebody to talk to.
I'm so glad I could be that someone.
So I have
and thank you for having me.
Oh, this is going to be great. I've been waiting for this. So I have to tell you a story. So I had read, all this information about you, and I realized that I had an experience recently, and I think you'll appreciate it. So, you want to stay young, you want to stay vibrant, and I'm out there and I try to put on a youthful energy, and sometimes I'll take the gray beard and put a little color in it just to give that youthful look. I have a friend, he's an ER doctor, and we were sitting around and we were talking about my past and my history. And he turned around and he goes, I don't want you to be offended by this, but I have to tell you something. He goes, you need to go gray. You need to let the beard go gray. You have to stop pretending to be young. You should be that wise elder who sits in the corner and helps people of the next generation. So when I read about you, it just made so much sense.
Well, I love all of that except the sitting in the corner part.
Oh, okay. But we wog.
Yeah, we wog.
Right.
It's true.
So, okay, let's start from the beginning. This is, I always say, and I think many people say, this is not my grandparents' generation, right? We are a generation that's never been seen before. We're aging and sort of holding on to that, over 30 thing. You're old, so I'm always staying young type of thing. And one of the things I'm noticing is that there's a split. There's the generation who is out running, who's out jogging, who's out doing things, right? But there's still that part of the generation that has embraced their parents' style or their grandparents' style of retirement and living. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I'm seeing the same thing, that there is a split, but I think there's a split in every generation. When I was in my 40s and I was active, there was always going to be a contingency, that was at the opposite end of the spectrum, that wasn't active, that wasn't fit, that didn't really care about diet. It's just all a bunch of nonsense. So there's always been a split, regardless of the generation. I think that now, though, we have more information than ever before about how diet and exercise and attitude really contribute to overall aging well. And so we have many more tools available to us than our parents' generation did. The other thing that's happening is that, oh my gosh, there is kind of this wave of, what would you call it, like elderhood in the culture that's stronger and more visible. All of our politicians, all of our leaders are over the age of 50. In the 2018 election, more women over the age of 50 ran for local, state, and national office than ever before. So I do see both sides of it. I choose to land on one side of it because I have this intention and sense of purposefulness about living well to the very end. Old is a destination. I'm not looking to reach the destination. Older is fine with me, but don't hit me with a destination point. That's the part where I think it becomes dicey. And we've all known that person or heard about that person that they kind of got old at 45 and then they died at 93.
Right. So I'm curious. I came at this from, I think, an ageist point of view. I started seeing it every place. And I said, I need to do something about getting information out there. All this health and nutrition or psychology, whatever it was, I needed to get out there to tell people there's a whole life out there. But it was because I was sensing, and I can give you a personal example. I've had this extraordinary career. I started one of the very first of the internet marketing companies back in 93, and it was sold. And, all of a sudden, I had to hit a point where I was being told it was time to turn over to the next generation. And I made the case that that was true, except that I had an offering still, based on experience and all that. And it may take a new generation to redevelop new products and new way of thinking. But without the older, wiser, more experienced person back there, they have to first learn everything, from the start. And I want to know how you came into this. Did you wake up one morning and said, this is my topic, and especially for women? And by the way, I'm joining the women's movement now, so I'll be included.
So like most things in my life, I often don't see what's right in front of my face. I have to trip over it. And I literally tripped over or into the positive aging movement. At the time, I was writing for a lot of different places. I was writing for a local newspaper in Oregon called the Rogue Valley Messenger. I was trying to publish a lot of different places, and I was publishing on a site called 60andMe. And when I first started publishing on 60andMe, I wasn't that interested in writing about aging, but I found that when I did, I got amazing feedback from women. Now, that's primarily a website for women, 60andMe. But the feedback that I was getting, the overall message was, I'm a woman who's 60 plus, and I'm trying to figure this out. I'm not ready to stop living my life. I don't want to be told that I can't wear leggings and cute clothes to go to the gym. I want an Encore career. And so I went, wow, there's really something going on here. I was also at the time reading a wonderful woman named Joan Chittister, who wrote a lovely book called The Gift of Years. And the way that she talked about aging was so uplifting that this is really the best time in our country's history to be an older person, because we do know so much more about diet and exercise, because you can replace body parts the way you replace car parts. It's not like you injure your back and then that's it. You're a write-off. You injure your back and there's stuff that they can do for you. So that's how I got into it. And the more I got into it, this sounds absurd, but the more I got into it, I ended up writing a book called A Delightful Little Book on Aging. And once I had finished the book, it occurred to me that not only was this book my writing, but it was my message. It was my platform. It said, live well, love fully, seize the day. None of us knows how much time we have left, right? You don't know that at age 10 any more than you know at age 68, although I'm assuming at age 68, it's a little bit less than at the age of 10. But I wanted to get that message out there because the other thing that I heard from women so often was aging sucks. I really don't like this. And what's really being said in that moment of snark and anger is, I'm scared to death that I'm losing my good looks and I won't be desirable to anyone else, let alone myself. So what do? It's like, is it over? Well, it's not over. I mean, the message you've given our daughters and our granddaughters and our nieces and our sisters is your worth is not contingent upon how you look. Your worth is not contingent upon the size of your thighs, or the size of your bank account. So that's how I got into this. And now that I'm into it, man, I'm on a soapbox. I love it. I love sharing the message. And I find that I'm being welcomed into a community of women that are placing a stake in the ground and saying, yeah, I'm going to let my hair go silver. Yeah, I'm going to be older and I'm going to stand in that light of the light of that truth, and I'm going to speak it.
You talk about being a wise elder, or we should grow into being a wise elder. Is it as simple as we have so much experience, we should share it, or is there more to it?
I think there's more to it. I think that we need to learn, we need to train ourselves to be a wise elder. I think part of it is learning to become the listener, the deep listener, so that we're listening to someone to really see what that youth standing in front of us, what it is that they need, what it is that we can best give them. You don't want to just like throw out all your knowledge and information unsolicited to a group of 30-year-olds. You're likely to start a revolution. So I think that we need to learn to listen, first of all. I think that we need to be vulnerable with the youthful population and really be authentic with them, share in our hearts what it is to age, and that aging is a privilege. Yeah.
So let's step back a second. So listening, right? Are we listening to learn about the next generations? Are we listening to see what advice we can give? Or I find when I listen, I'm so caught up in how they think, how they live, how they're looking at life, that maybe I'm sitting there having them teach me about them.
Sure.
And maybe I'm not so much focused on what I can give them.
Right.
And I should be, because, we should be passing down wisdom from generation to generation.
Well, I think it's twofold. I think that listening is the art of truly being present with someone, truly bearing witness to their life. We all want to be heard, all of us at every age. So that's part of it, is the deep listening. And as far as the advice goes, I think if we listen deep enough, we know whether or not that person is open to advice. Sometimes people, they want to like lay it all out for you and they'd like to hear what you have to say. And sometimes they really don't.
The other thing I think I've been sort of thinking about is that I've spent a lot of my life being a very creative person, as I know you to be, based on everything I'm reading about you. And sometimes I feel that creatively I'm not what I used to be. And I think I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask about creativity declining. And I'm assuming it doesn't, it changes, right? But maybe you have a better way of articulating it.
I think creativity slows to a point of thoughtfulness rather than just doing. I think there's a kind of creativity that can be frenetic. You know, you see stuff on the internet all the time. As a writer, it drives me crazy. You know, how to write a novel in 30 days. It's like, well, why would you want to do that? What's thoughtful about that? But often when you're young, the sense of speed is more valued. So creativity as we grow older slows. So yes, it does change. And I don't mean slows in a bad way. I mean slows in a way that it becomes more intentional, more purposeful, more thoughtful, or at least it has the potential to be that and to do that. And so as a result, you can rattle off names like Grandma Moses painting at the age of 70, or Laura Ingalls Wilder, who wrote Little House on the Prairie when she was in her mid-60s. These were thoughtful, creative people. And Warren Buffett, who's one of the most creative people that I can think of, who's in his 80s, has become more and more thoughtful, not only about finance and the creativity of finance, but what that means to the rest of the world. So yes, it is a different kind of creativity, and for me, it's a welcome one.
The thing I noticed about being creative is when I was younger, I was myopic. In other words, I saw things through a lens and nothing else interfered with it. As you become older, and I hate to use the word because it has such negative connotation, but you become jaded in the sense that you have learned all the pitfalls of what you are doing. In other words, your life experience says, oh, I can't do that because, that probably will happen, or this will happen, or, something like that. And now, you sit down, and I've been writing quite a bit, and I always wonder if the interference is coming from the fact that I have too much experience and it's interfering.
I think it's just the state that you put yourself into before you create as well. I like to sit quietly for a little bit in the morning before I do anything, because that chatter does go on in the brain all the time.
That's right. So here's the question. I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, right? And that's ageism.
Yeah.
This is something that obviously it's so big that even AARP, AARP, by the way, I'm a big fan of AARP. A lot of people rebel against it, but I'm a big fan because they have the best database of information out there. But they have concentrated a lot of efforts on ageism. In fact, I think the new head, and I forget what her name is, who's running AARP, but she's just released the book on ageism and how to fight it. And I find that I have, in my experience, and you can tell me yours, I fight it because I have to prove so hard that I'm relevant, and I have something to offer, when in fact, I am relevant and I do have something to offer, right? So what is your sense about ageism?
Well, once again, it's twofold. I mean, ageism is a very real thing. It is an outside force from clueless people. And age is one of the last bastions of political incorrectness that we have. But the sense of insignificance, the sense of invisibility, the sense of irrelevance, I think it's very important to look deeply within oneself and recognize that some of that call is coming from inside the house.
That's right.
You just stated it. It's like, well, yes, I know that I'm relevant. I don't have to prove it so hard. But it's like, well, do we really? Do we think that because of the accumulation of years, because advertising stops targeting us with the fun things that we used to do? Wow, look at all those 70-year-olds going out for pizza. You're less likely to see that than you are to see a commercial about how if you don't wear this necklace with the button on it, you're going to slip and fall and die a horrible death all by yourself.
That's right.
So, we're being targeted with exercise and bombarded with messages from the outside that say we should fear aging. Aging is dark. There's nothing good about it, et cetera, et cetera. And we begin to feel irrelevant, insignificant, the object of someone's care, as opposed to a sovereign soul who just happens to have lived for 70 or 80 years. But I do think that we have to hit that one point as well as everything else, which is that the call of insignificance, if you're feeling insignificant, that call is coming from inside the house. And you need to have a good talking to with yourself before you can educate the rest of the world about insignificance as it appears in ageism.
Okay, I want you to do something right here so I can fit it in for the radio audience. Right. Tell us about the book you have coming out.
The book I have coming out is called A Delightful Little Book on Aging. It's through She Writes Press. It will be released on April 28th of 2020. And it is a book divided into 4 sections of essays about grief, reclamation, vision, and humor, which are the areas of aging as I saw them during the writing of this book.
All right. Now we can go back to our conversation. I just want to make sure we got that. Here's the other one, and I see it in what I'm reading about you. So we have a situation, the politics of aging, and you write big pharma and end of life care, that type of thing. Talk a little about that.
Well, big pharma is a big culprit. I saw recently a commercial that has since been pulled, I think, and it was about, are you going to get the flu shot this year? Well, if you're over 65, we've got a flu shot for you that's 4 times as strong as the regular flu shot. And I thought, what could go wrong?
I took it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well, it scared me.
Right.
The whole idea that something would be 4 times as stronger, because I know that inoculations like that are made up of, a little bit of what they think is going to infect you. And the idea is that if you get a little bit of it, your body has a chance to build up an immunity to it.
Right.
But the fact that it was 4 times as strong really got me. The other thing is that I think that that Big Pharma has come up with a lot of different conditions that I didn't realize were conditions. And there's the drug for that. And so I think that we are a vulnerable population base at this time in life. We want to live healthy lifestyles, and it's easy to get scared and think, well, I need this drug for this and this drug for that. And plus, I see the cost of drugs.
Oh, outrageous.
And it's like, oh my gosh. I saw an advertisement the other night. My husband and I were watching something, and this drug that was it was for arthritis, and it was $3,300 a month.
That's right.
But that if Medicare is billing on that drug, they're getting a portion of it, and then you're paying a portion of it in copay. And so the pharmacies or the big pharma is making their money on it. But that's obscene.
It is. I'm not sure where the solution for that is. And what's interesting about that, you live right now in, you said Austin, right? No.
Yes, Austin, Texas.
When I relocated down to Florida, in the Vero Beach, Indian River County area, very beautiful, by the way, I moved into really a community that, is mostly more senior than most communities.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, when I turn on the TV, I only get drug ads. I sit there and I go, oh, I should take Humira for this. I should take that for this. But we are marketed to so heavily. It's a bit, I think, dispiriting.
It is. And don't get me wrong, I am not anti-drug. I mean, there are life-saving drugs out there. And if I break a leg, I want to be in the best emergency room I can be in, and shoot me up with whatever I need to take the pain away and, do the surgery. It's like, there's great stuff out there, but it's like too much. So,
And never ending, too.
and never
Never ending.
ending, and all of these like conditions that, like I said, I never knew you could have.
Okay, I got two more for you.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of people, actually, let me step back. I found in our research, in my almost 6 years doing this show, that our generation, or the more senior generation, controls almost $2 trillion worth of wealth. But 40 to 50% will not have the means, right, to live when they hit that age of 65. Sometimes it's because they didn't save enough, or they, their kids cost a lot, and sending them to schools and taking care of their parents, they didn't save enough. In other cases, people did put away their $1 million that they needed to retire, except they're going to live till 95. So they got another 30 years, which is longer than they worked, that they have to support themselves. So careers are really important. And you call them, I believe, Encore careers.
Yes, Encore careers.
Okay, tell us.
Well, a lot of people that I know parlayed the work that they were doing into something else. My husband worked as a nutritionist and an acupuncturist for a number of years. And when he retired from clinical practice, we had put together a little nutrient company some years ago. And when we sold that nutrient company, word got out. And the next thing we knew, he was inundated with offers to consult from various nutrient companies. So that's what he does now. He acts as a consultant for startups and for established nutraceutical companies. And that is his Encore career. But it's different than the career that he did for 40 years because his commute is up a flight of stairs to his office. Right. He doesn't work a 9 to 5 kind of day. He'll sometimes lay in bed and answer emails in the morning and, go up and work for a couple of hours. We go for a walk with the dog. We come back, take a nap. Maybe he works for another couple of hours. That's the way his life goes now. So it works well for him. For me, I just had a sense of really needing a sense of purpose and intent. So I pursued something that I had put aside during my the first part of our marriage, just because a mortgage and all the obligations and responsibilities of life were in my face. They're not so much in my face now. So even though I don't feel the need to make an income, I still have the need to do something that's creative in the world, to do something. So yes, an Encore career. They take many different shapes. And here's another interesting piece on that. A lot of people don't know this, but I love to talk about this woman, Maggie Kuhn. Do you know who she is?
I've heard the name.
Maggie Kuhn was an activist and an advocate for aging well, like 40 years ago. And she went before Congress in the 1960s because at 65, the law of the land was, by law, you had to retire. You were not allowed to work. You couldn't go get a second job or a part-time job or whatnot. And she didn't like that. And so she became an advocate for aging well. She became an advocate for people working as long as they wanted to work, as long as they were capable. And she became an advocate that inspired intergenerational activism. If you don't know what intergenerational activism is, look no further than something like the Bernie Sanders campaign that has like, here's this old dude and here are all these young people surrounding him. Intergenerational living, which is a big thing in Europe right now, where college students are paired with older people and everybody does better health-wise, mentally, in their hearts. So that's who Maggie Kuhn is. And I forgot how we got onto Maggie Kuhn, but intergenerational. We were talking about work and age and Encore careers. And so Maggie Kuhn made it so that we could all work longer if we wanted to. We can thank her for that. And she also made it that we could interact with young people in a way that there was a place that they could use our wisdom and our knowledge base about logistics in a way that was good for them and also good for us.
Okay. Briefly, The positive aging movement. Define it.
Positive aging movement. I knew you were going to ask that. Positive aging is the work that we do in later life to keep a good attitude, to adapt with a sense of joy, and to stay active and engaged in the world.
I love it. I love it.
Me too.
I love this conversation. We're going to call it quits this time, but we're going to follow this. I have some thoughts. So I do want to thank you so much, Stephanie Raffelock, right? And she's got her own podcast called the Coffee Table Wisdom Podcast. And she's a
wherever
blogger.
you get your podcast.
Wherever you get your podcast. And I will promote it on mine. Anyway, thanks so much. And I look forward to our next conversation.
This was fun. Thank you.
Okay.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get...
As we come to the close of another week of Yak About Today, I want to thank you again for listening. Remember, you can go to yakabouttoday.com to listen to any of our shows, or if you are new here and listening to one of the podcast networks that carry us, consider subscribing. And remember, you can write to us at david@yakabouttoday.com or follow us on Facebook or Twitter at yakaboutoday. I'm David Yakir, and I hope that we can chat next time. Same place, anytime you're free to listen. Peace.
And when you finish doing that, bring in the dog, put out the cat, yakety yak.
Don't talk back.